Hello everyone, welcome to the first video of 26 module on best practices of school counselor, being a good listener, friend and authoritative. The fields of counseling and psychotherapy have gained tremendous interest in the last few decades in the areas of healthcare, family, workplace and of course schools. Counseling in schools has developed as a separate specialty, partly due to a decrease in the teachers' participation as the traditional pastoral roles. As such, the teachers have too much of workload, work pressure, and are also constrained by the national curriculum and standard assessment tasks. They find little time for the other activities. Moreover, due to increased exposures, the students' awareness has increased and often voluntarily seek counseling support to manage the emotional hazards in growing up. The parents of students are also equally interested in the idea of having a supportive adult in the school with whom the students can share their problems. In the current scenario, parents take the initiative in asking the head teacher or school administrator to employ a school counselor. School administrators and the teachers also appreciate the role of a school counselor in sharing their responsibilities over the students' growth. The usefulness of the school counselor is being increasingly recognized as someone who is available to all the students, not only to meet their educational needs but also emotional and psychological needs, thereby contributing to the well-being of the whole school. Thus, the school counselor's role is a part of a wider organizational context and focuses on systems and the interrelatedness in the setting. The school counselor helps the students in coping with and adjusting to the challenging circumstances. They also help the stakeholders to adapt to the changes in the students. Working with the children and adolescents requires different ideas and set of skills than the ones applicable while working with the adults. Despite the knowledge and skill set, it is important that the school counselor has certain important traits or attributes to effectively guide the students and the stakeholder through the challenges. School counselor requires long hours of handling students, parents, and school staff directly. This involves functions like helping the students with their academic, health, social, personal, and family issues through listening, documenting, designing, and implementing programs. Additionally, they mediate, negotiate, advocate, and provide referrals for the students. The characteristics or the traits of a school counselor help him or her to apply best practices in the concerned role. The above-mentioned functions related to the job expect the school counselor to have right traits to be successful. Some of such traits can be being empathetic, good listener, friendly, strong assessment skills, authoritative as needed. This module will be discussing about the school counselor's traits of being a good listener, friend, and authoritative. So the learning objective of this first video is augment comprehension over the role of being a good listener. Being a good listener, the school counselor is a very important and valuable professional in any academic system. Although the school counselor's work is very difficult as he or she will have to attend to hundreds of thousands of students within the limited time, the impact they make through change in students is very important. Effective counseling requires an understanding of self and detailed awareness of the impact of oneself and the others. Basically, a school counselor communicates the counseling process. The important first step in communication is being a good listener. Communication is the base to build a strong relationship. It is essential that a school counselor possesses advanced listening skills. At the same time, listening and empathy goes hand in hand. So it is essential that a school counselor possesses both advanced listening ability and empathetic ability or empathetic listening ability. Listening is very important basic counseling skills that involves reflecting feelings, message content, closeness, and confrontation. Few of the processes in listening are cognitive processes, affective processes, and behavioral processes. Paying attention, understanding, accepting, and interpreting messages are the functions of cognitive processes. While being motivated and stimulated to be in the present are the functions of affective processes. And responding to verbal and non-verbal cues are the functions involved in behavioral processes. To be a good listener, counselor is required to show involvement, attending to the client, interpreting, and responding with emotional support. Such a good listening proves the authenticity of the school counselor. Not many people are ready to simply listen without offering advice or saying, "I know what you mean," or "when that happened to you," etc. It is really a difficult task to focus on the speaker, keeping aside our own concerns while acknowledging and be interested in the listener's experience. If one is able to practice such a task, then such a person can be considered as genuine good listener. Such is the skill that a school counselor is required to possess. The qualities of a good listener operates at several levels. The first level requires of self-discipline. A great deal of concentration is required for being wholly focused, even for 5 minutes. While the speaker is engaged in speaking, any of the words uttered by the speaker can precipitate a chain of thought in the listener. Such thoughts can be either ideas or disagreement with whatever has been said, or it also can be a different opinion, which may trigger a response in the listener. Apart from this, there may be distractions from the environment or disturbances of biological function, and this can hinder the concentration and make the task more difficult. Next level in being a good listener is the ability to capture the whole message, even if only the content is being delivered. The ability to hear everything is very crucial, and it can be interfered by many barriers. One such barrier is switching off, as the speaker repeats a familiar environment and then refocuses on some new factor without understanding the link. This can be worse when the school counselor develops "I have heard it before" syndrome. An important aspect to be remembered here is that as a professional, the listener would have heard the familiar situations many times, but for the student, it is a new individualistic experience. A non-judgmental quality can be demonstrated by the school counselor by being able to capture the whole content of a message. It is essential not to assume that what is not important to the counselor is not important to the student. So it is important that the school counselor listens to everything that the student has to say. The third level involves a good listener to be able to listen not only to what is being said, but how it is being said. Though sustained concentration can be both demanding and tiring, even more efforts and energy is needed for the third level. This involves a more delicate skill of listening to the feelings attached to the content, which is the real art in active listening. The way that the content is being delivered has a whole new meaning, which in turn can affect the listener's response. Such ability to hear feelings as well as the content and then draw sensitive inferences has been sometimes termed as listening with the third ear. It's a very intricate and delicate skill which a school counselor needs to acquire and then practice, as it reflects the school counselor has heard the student accurately and is also genuinely empathetic. Some of the components of being a good listener are listening with full attention and concentration with the self-discipline. Second, capture the whole messages of the content without taking a judgmental stand. Third, listening to the feelings, non-verbal message. And the fourth one is interpret the content by putting together both verbal and non-verbal messages. This can be done by identifying core messages and feelings, understanding the problems of the student, thinking hard through listening, and reflecting on the message communicated by the students. In this video, we have discussed about why adopting best practices are important for successful counseling for the school counselor. Overviews of being good listener as best counseling practice and the levels of strategic listening. In the next video, we will focus on obstacles of listening and how school counselor can best practice being a friend. Thank you.